All right, our at-home project today is going to be to make a 3D printed object. And I'm going to show you an example of something that you can make, and I'm just going to show you how to make a really basic keychain. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to go and name our file here. So we're going to call it 3D print. Okay. Now, when you're 3D printing an object, a couple things that you want to think of are you need your object to have a fair bit of connection to the build plate. So think of this work plane here as our build plate. If you only have a very small amount of your object connected to the build plate, there won't be much for it to hold on to while the print is being designed. So I would say choose something that's fairly flat, very flat on the bottom, something that has a lot of surface contact area on the bottom, and it's going to be sitting nicely on there. So I'm just going to show you how to make a really basic keychain, which is a really easy one to design and print, and it'll be one that will be a high chance of success when you go to 3D print it. So we're going to start out by just grabbing a cylinder here, and we're going to size our cylinder. Now whenever you're sizing your 3D print, the maximum size that we're going to choose for this is going to be 50 millimeters by 50 millimeters. Okay, so we're just creating our cylinder here that's 50 by 50, and I'm going to set the height of this cylinder here. We're going to go down to, let's say, 4 millimeters thick. Okay, now I'm looking at this cylinder and I can see that right now the number of sides on it is 20, so you can see that it doesn't have a very round appearance to the edge, which you can keep if you want, or you could make that a lower number. I want a rounder surface, so I'm going to crank that up to the maximum, which is 64 segments it's broken up into. Okay. Now for making a keychain, we want to make sure that we have a place to put a key ring on and attach it. So I'm then going to look at our options here, and a good option for making your key ring is grabbing that tube shape. So we're going to bring out the tube here, and we're going to set the size of it. So our height of that, we're going to make it match our object, which we picked 4 millimeters as our height. And then what we can do is adjust the size of it. So if we want a big key ring, we can have it quite large. I'm just going to kind of grab it and drag it over here and set it into place. So we can go something like that, which would be nice to put a key ring in. Don't have it sitting so it's almost like this. You want to have a lot of that plastic joined together so that it allows for a nice connection between those two parts. Okay. I think I'm going to take the time and align this as well. So I'm just going to click on one object, hold shift, click on the other object, and then I'm going to go to our align tool, and I'm just going to make sure that they're kind of aligned on the same center like that. So now they're lined up nicely on the center. Okay. Now, I think what I'm going to do as well, I'm going to join those two to each other as well. So select them both. I'm going to click group, and now those are grouped together as one object. Okay, and our key ring will fit through there. Now you can choose what you want to put on the surface of your keychain, and it doesn't have to be round. You could make a rectangular one with curved edges, whatever you like. I do recommend making a keychain though, because right now we have, if we look at the bottom here, we have a lot of surface area contact on our build plate, which is going to make our print go really smoothly. Another thing we want to think of, we don't want to have objects overhanging our surface that's touching the build plate. So if we have this all up against the build plate, and say I were to take another shape, just as an example, say I take this and I set it up to 4 units, and I bring it over top like this. If we were to leave this object on here, the part that's on top of here would print really nicely because the plastic gets melted and laid out in place. So this all in here would print really nicely. However, if we look underneath here, this piece right here that's overhanging would not be able to be printed. The only way that it can is if we insert some support pieces in there. And I'm going to recommend, just because this is our first print, that we not have anything overhang our objects, because there's a lot higher likelihood of a print failure if we have objects overhanging like how that is right there. So I just brought that out as an example. Okay. Let's say that we want to, I'm going to make a smiley face. So I'm going to go down here. There's different ways you could do this. I'm going to take, this looks kind of like a mouth. So I'm going to bring out this round roof object. And I'm just going to rotate it here. Just like this to stand it up. Oh, one more. There we go. And then I'm going to spin it around this way here. 180 degrees, just like that. I'm going to adjust the height. This is 4 millimeters thick. I'm going to bring it down. If you make any detail, like this is going to be kind of a detail of a face. If you make it too thick, it looks kind of funny. So I wouldn't make it any more than like maybe 2 millimeters as a maximum. And then I'm just going to pull it up to the same height as our top surface here. We're going to drag this over and just set it in place like this. And I'm going to adjust the shape of it a little bit just by squeezing it together here. And we're going to align this as well. So we're going to select this object and this object. And we're going to click on our align tool, and I'm just going to align it to center it. All right, so now we have our mouth in place. Make sure that when you're looking at it, that you look at it on an angle too, where you can see that there's some depth to that. If you have it sitting where it doesn't stick up out of your object, we won't have any kind of depth, and the 3D printer won't be able to print that. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to put some eyes on this. So there's different ways that you can create that. I'm going to use these half spheres. So I'm going to take a half sphere here, and I'm going to set that height down to 2 millimeters as well. And then I'm just going to adjust the size here, and I'm thinking maybe something, maybe like an 8x8, I think, would look nice. And again, we're just kind of free-forming this. Okay. So there's one of my eyes. I want to make those eyes identical. So I'm just going to click the copy tool. We're going to click paste. And now we have our 2 eyes. So let's take that first one. Let's set it up to the height. So that's going to be 4 units. I'm going to bring it over, set it onto the face. Now we'll click this one. We're going to lift it up to 4 units. Just like that. And let's bring it over and set it on the face as well. Now, you might want to just kind of play with this and get them aligned so they look nice and neat. I find if you come right over top of things, you can get a little bit better look at it and get those sitting in a place where you want. Look at that beautiful smiley face. Won't that make a great keychain? Yeah, I think so. If you also want to add text onto your object, you can. On something like this, I don't really have an opening to add text on my smiley face, but if you do a different keychain and you would like to add text, feel free to go down to the text option right here. Bring your text out, size your text. Now, I'm going to warn you, if you make your text too small, it's going to be very difficult to read. The 3D printer won't have as great of resolution as you think it will when you're really zoomed in on something. So make sure if you are setting text, I wouldn't put more than 1 or 2 words on a keychain of the size that we're making. So we're saying it's 50 millimeters by 50 millimeters. That's the maximum size that you can make your object design for. Otherwise, they're too big and they take too long to print. So that is your maximum size. If you exceed that, I'll send it back to you and tell you have to shrink it. If you're making an object that size, I would say no more than 1 or 2 words on it. And I wouldn't make your text really high as well. I would say 1 or 2 millimeters look really nice when you're placing text onto an object. So just as an example, if I were to say put this text on there, and let's say I want to say drafting on there, that's a pretty large word to fit onto here. It's not really going to fit, but if we wanted to, say we wanted to set it across the middle, which would look kind of funny, but let's say that's something you wanted. We could set it kind of like that. And now you can see how it's sticking up above, so the 3D printer is going to be able to print that. Okay. Now just looking at this, I see that I slid my object over. Make sure that you're taking these features, so the eyes, the mouth, if you're doing lettering, things like that, and make sure that once you have them put on there, select them all. So group them together, hold down that shift key, and then make sure that you group them together like that. So now they all become the same part of the object. It looks like I missed this one in my grouping. So we'll select those and group them together. And now we have our object all grouped together. And something like this would be a successful print. Okay? All right, good luck with your 3D prints. If there is a problem with it, I'll let you know in class, and then you might have to do a little bit of changing to it.